This is the first in a series of talks on the Diagnostic Formulation for Adler Graduate School course number 504, Abnormal Psychology. In this talk, I will discuss the definition and functions of a case formulation. There are two other talks in this unit, one on differential diagnosis and the other on maintenance models. Then there is a talk in each unit after this on some aspect of the diagnostic formulation process. The diagnostic formulation is the cross-sectional portion of a comprehensive case formulation. It focuses on a description of the person's current difficulties in functioning and the ways these difficulties are maintained and perpetuated. The most common format for a diagnostic assessment is a written report, usually an initial assessment report. But I encourage you to think of the case formulation as something that evolves over time as you get more information about the client, and as something that is openly discussed with the client throughout the course of therapy. It should be noted that some theories and some authors refer to a case conceptualization, while others refer to a case formulation. As near as I can tell, these are identical, and so for this course we will use the term formulation. The diagnostic formulation is one part of a comprehensive case formulation. This may also be referred to as an integrated case formulation or a biopsychosocial formulation. The diagnostic formulation is descriptive, and this means the focus is primarily on symptoms and current functioning. The inquiry into the various symptoms that a client presents focuses on the frequency, intensity, duration, and impact of each symptom. Oftentimes, several symptoms occur together. Actually, that is what a diagnosis is, a cluster of symptoms that have occurred together in a specified period of time. The diagnostic inquiry is interested in what the client experiences and how they make sense of what they are experiencing. The diagnostic criteria in DSM-5 specify a time period, usually 1 or 2 weeks, as well as a specific number of symptoms that must be present in order to satisfy the diagnostic criteria. If we think of a person's life as a river of events and experience, the diagnostic inquiry is interested in narrow sections of the river. However, a good clinician never forgets the wisdom of Heraclitus, who said, "No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river, and he's not the same man." I would hasten to add that the same is true for women. In addition to a focus on the symptomatic experience of the client, the diagnostic inquiry is striving to identify patterns of experience and to develop a model for how the symptoms are maintained and perpetuated. These factors of the diagnostic formulation are hypotheses developed by the client as they listen to and reflect on the reports of the client. I encourage you to validate these impressions with the client before assuming they are accurate portrayals of the client's personality and character. We usually think of the clinical formulation as the other major part of a comprehensive case formulation. The clinical formulation is focused on a more longitudinal view of the client's style of living, with hypotheses about the causes and origins of the symptoms and distress. This portion of the formulation is driven by the personality theory of the clinician, whereas the diagnostic portion is less theory-driven and more descriptive in nature. In their 2008 article, Kukin, Podesky, and Dudley identified 10 functions of comprehensive case formulations, which they define as a process in which the therapist and client work collaboratively to first describe and then explain the issues of a client presents in therapy. Its primary function is to guide therapy in order to relieve client distress and build client resilience. The case formulation is a synthesis of theory, research, and the client's experience, an application of what we know about human functioning to the person who is seeking help. It can be validating of the client's experience and normalize their distress. In this way, it promotes client engagement in the therapeutic process and enhances the therapeutic alliance. A good case formulation makes numerous complex problems more manageable and guides the selection, focus, and sequence of interventions. It identifies client strengths and suggests ways of building client resilience. It suggests the simplest and most cost-effective interventions. The case formulation can anticipate and address potential problems that could arise in the therapy. If the client is not making progress in therapy, the case formulation can be re-examined and may suggest alternative routes for change. Finally, the case formulation is one of the primary tools in clinical supervision. The diagnostic formulation is an analysis of cross-sectional data focused on the interplay between the situation, the thoughts, the emotions, the bodily sensations, and the behavior of the client. In CBT, this is known as the 5-aspect model, as illustrated by this graphic. A worksheet is available on the course page. You start with a concern or symptom that has been expressed by your client, and then identify as many of the other aspects as you can. As you define various aspects in your analysis of cross-sectional data, you and the client will be hypothesizing about the type of relationship that exists between them. We find several aspects of functioning that seem to occur around the same time when we do a 5-aspect analysis. It is important to keep in mind that covariation of variables does not establish any type of causal relationship. I have found that clients can often fill in the missing links between seemingly disparate aspects of a 5-aspect workshop when they are involved in the discussion. I often use a whiteboard to record our work together on these topics. It is not uncommon for clients to come back a week after an initial appointment and elaborate the relationship between various aspects on a 5-aspect worksheet. This model helps you conduct a thorough inquiry into symptoms and serves as an organizing model for your formulation.